Hi, everyone. This is Martha Novak. This is a show called Real Talk with Martha Novak. I'm awfully glad to be with you all today. It is a gorgeous day here and just makes you glad to be alive. I hope you're finding that where you are too. We have a lot to be thankful for in this crazy old world. We're going to finish our show today on authenticity and being happy by being authentic. We just have a few more points to make. We can go anywhere you want. I am live and in person today, so the guest call-in number is 347-850-1647. 347-850-1647. If you call that number, you're going to get on the air. You're welcome to call me and not get on the air, but I won't be able to tell, so I will go to write to you and you can say I don't have a computer, but I am listening, and that's just fine. I'll leave you open. But otherwise, if you do have a computer, please get on it, and you're probably already on it to hear this message, or on Facebook Live. We are both. And all of our shows are archived to Blog Talk Radio, Facebook Live, and the YouTube venue. Let's do a prayer, shall we? Get us all on the same page, and then we'll launch off into our talk. Dear God, thank you so much for this wonderful day, for being here under the banner of loving you, knowing us. We thank you so much for the opportunity to be together and to open ourselves to things that might really change us if we let it. We open ourselves now to that. We ask to see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do as we open to the truth that lies in your enlightenment. We ask now that we know nothing and we stop investing in that, for it is the you through us that knows it all. And we ask now to be open to what you would as a first step, a second step, and possibly beyond. Thank you so much, dear God. Motivate us with courage and with love. And so it is. Amen. All right, Kiddo Keens. Oh, good morning, Kat. Kat, I that you've been trying to reach me, sweetheart. Do try again. I had a switch over in from one thing to the other, different addresses. And I think that some of my messages got lost. So by all, write me at martha@marthanovak.com. And that's how to get in touch with me. And I would love that. I would love for us to connect. So I was hoping you would be on the line today. So good. I'm thrilled. All right, darling. Let's get going, all of you that are out there listening. Good. Thank you, Kat. You're a friend of mine, so I am delighted at our connection, really. Okay. We've talked about all the principles now of authenticity. I have a few more to add. Thank you, sweetie. I have a few more to add, and that is, I'm going to talk about reality a moment. One of the things I've noticed for a long time, but I've particularly noticed this week, is how children, the child's mind, lumps a lot of things together. There's not the discerning factor, the ability to discern one thing from another. I've got the hiccups for some reason. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. someone might grow up in the church, let's say in the Catholic Church. This was certainly my husband. We had a big discussion about it at the beginning of the week. He grew up Catholic, and he just couldn't buy some of the things that were true about what they were teaching him. And for a long time, he longed God and Jesus and all the saints and the theory, all in the church. It was nicely packaged for him as that and put up on a shelf as something he didn't care about or want. Instead of taking all the pieces separately and realizing that any church is dogma and it is by its nature man-made, able to see the difference of in the church, for example. I had another example yesterday. A very dear client of mine that I've had for years and years in my advanced class was sharing with the class that his mother was pretty crazy. She really did have a mental illness, of what I don't know. I never saw her. He drove her family crazy and was highly critical and manic, but was very kind and loved nature and animals. And we were saying that thank God she had that. He said he didn't know where she would be had she not had that. And I pointed out that, of course, nature and animals made her feel very safe, right? And that was where she could let down and get her safety. And he shared that for a long time, he hated all of that nature and animals because it reminded him of his mom. And after all the work we have done for many, many years, we've separated all those things for him. And now he's in love with his dog and always will. Readily admits it. It's a common thing for kids to link things together. Okay, now let's go back to what I was going to talk about with reality. When something terrible happens to us as children, there's some sort of trauma. And remember, the trauma doesn't have to be, the Mongols invading. It can be literally something like you're not being fed on time, or there's a crisis in the family that doesn't have anything to do with you, and yet your schedule is thrown off. It can be anything, because a kid is, until 18 months, absolutely in the moment, right? We're in the moment. And that's all that it is. There's no past and no future until 18 months old, when we develop our ego and our egoic child's mind to help us project into the future to make sure there are no bad things out there that are going to get us like there were in the past, right? So one of the things that we do, we'll lump in our minds trauma and reality. Trauma, whatever hurt us, sometimes we don't even remember what hurt us. But we've lumped that in with reality. And this is one of the reasons. Now, all children fantasize, right, in our own way. But this really makes us even more of a fantasist, because we have created in our minds reality is bad. All right. Now, here's the problem with that. Reality is the only place you can manifest from. It's the only place you can manifest from. So, if you are into metaphysics, a lovely reality for yourself, you have to be in reality to create that. That's the irony here. So, we all of a sudden are at odds with ourselves if we are afraid of reality, if we're afraid reality is going to hurt, if we have any prejudices about reality. You see? So it becomes very important for us in our spiritual work and on our spiritual journey to wake up to the fact that reality is just reality. It's neither bad nor good, and don't lump it in with the things that traumatized you as a child. We have to now accept what is. By the way, that's one of the most spiritual experiences along your journey there is, to accept what is. If you can accept what is, you can see what's missing in the what is, and what services and what value you can provide and you can add. You can see the advantages of this place. You know how to work with yourself within it and help other people. Non-acceptance of what is, and how do we not accept what is? We don't accept what is. Fantasy is a way to avoid it, isn't it? Or we have a million ways, quite frankly, to avoid reality. OCD is avoiding reality. You've already shut off the stove. You've already locked the door. You have to be conscious and aware and be there and know you have. But it's a way to get yourself safe, isn't it? Because you're not there. Avoided reality. Being there. Doing the act. So there are a lot of them. I don't need to go into them right now. You've probably heard them in other shows. But we have to be here. Now that reality leads me into this. When we are talking about being conscious, we are talking about being here, being present in this moment. This moment. There is no more flattering thing to anybody that will ever stand in front of you than for you to feel there's no place I'd rather be in this moment than right here. I think that's absolutely the basis of charisma. You know, you've seen some people that are highly charismatic. If they spend 2 seconds with you, 2 seconds where they really, really say to you, there's no place I'd rather be than right here with you. That's very, very heady stuff. And that is quite the thing when you feel it from someone. I hope you feel it from me, because there is no place I'd rather be than right here with you today. So, yes, we need to make our peace with reality. And yes, part of that is being here, being present. Now, here we are, Sunday morning. We have our trusty cups of tea and coffee with us, and we're talking. But I want you to know this becomes a little harder when someone's arguing with you, when they have a different point of view, when you have to work something out with them. You have to agree to disagree, or you have to agree to agree. Many of us have learned to fear conflict of any kind and to run away from anything that even seems like a threat. Threats can come in a lot of forms. It's not just somebody coming at you with a knife or a machete, no. Sometimes threats can be the fact that somebody else sees it a different way. Perhaps a threat comes because you have you're not liked and never will be. And so anytime anybody even asks a question to you, it feels like a challenge. And you're expecting them to dislike. There are a lot of ways that we feel threatened. I talked to someone the other day, not a client. When I said something about, that must feel like a threat to you, I was definitely picking that up. They said, oh, no, no. And, I certainly let that remark go by. I was just trying to make conversation and be nice as so they were sharing something with me. But I want you to know that's a problem when somebody denies what they really feel. No, no, I'm not threatened. No, no, I'm not mad. Guys, the first place to start to heal is to say, yes, indeed, I am. That's the first place. It's the most wonderful thing when you can just be honest and stand on that very strong foundation stone and say, I claim this, and now I want to be something else. Then you have the choice to move in all sorts of directions and correct it. Whoa, wow, that's power. But you first have to admit it. And the reason I'm putting this on the table is when I work with folks, sometimes it takes me several years, depending on how strong the armor is around somebody, before they'll even admit, yeah, I'm mad, yeah, I'm a narcissist, yeah, I'm a this, yes, I'm a that. We can make it a lot faster if you will just accept, what am I going to say? What is. That's exactly right. Accept what is. And the place to start that is not by accepting what is out there so much as accepting what is in here. This comes first. And it's an easier world. All right. If we don't accept what is, if we expect to be hurt, if we expect to be disappointed, if we expect to be injured in some way, if we expect to be challenged, if we expect to fail, well, I can understand why you think reality is not a good place to be. However, I want to say to you that really does need to change, because reality is it. Reality is the balm, as people say. It is. It's the place that contains the ability to connect with what you want and to set that in motion. So, in that, we have to be willing to fight, let's say, a fight with your partner or a disagreement of some sort. Do you vacate the premises? Do you get mad and domineering and threaten so that they'll sit down? That's another thing we do. Or do you stand there and hear what's going on and listen to God in that moment, who's always there with you? It's all you are. And listen to that voice and talk right behind it. God, enter here, you can say. God, enter here. And God into the situation, not just through you, but through the other person or persons. God, enter here is one of my very favorite prayers. It's such a good prayer, and I want to say there's a certain power in it when you say it all day long. If you will just go about your day and bring yourself back to saying, God, enter here, in the next moment, in the next scene of your life, God, enter here. It really is very, very helpful. In my opinion, I don't think there's anything to argue about at all in this world. I think we are still arguing with our past and with players that remind us of our past and of situations that remind us of the past. And they are here in full agreement with us because our ego child's mind and our highest selves are bringing all of that in. The ego child's mind brings it in because it's familiar, whatever the disagreement the person is, and the higher mind brings it in because it hopes that finally you'll put this to rest. You'll heal from this. So everything about you is in agreement with bringing the past in over and over again so you could do something about it. Instead, a lot of us that are not aware of what's going on collapse into what we did when we were a child, and that doesn't fix anything. So these things just keep coming back over and over and over again, and sometimes get even more and more dramatic, and that hurts us more and more. In my opinion, other than the things that we have in life, like, paying taxes and death and things that normally happen in the world, or can normally happen in the world, I just really don't see much point in arguing. My husband loves, really does, just fine. I can either participate in that or not. And there are many times that I say, this is cease the point of discussion where we were learning something from each other and about each other. And it's going into argument just because you want to expend some energy, and I don't think I want to do that. Works like a charm. You don't argue anymore. He realizes what he's doing. He came from a very argumentative family. I did not. So there we are. I put that on the table for you to use. So it takes some courage to begin with for you to stand there when you see that there's an argument or when you feel that there's a threat. Now listen, if there is a genuine threat, if you are in danger, forget everything I'm saying and just get the hell out of there. But that doesn't happen too frequently, does it? Mainly, our threats are the day-to-day, the fear of what somebody's going to say, of losing a job, of this or that. And there are ways to handle that we've talked about before. One of my favorite stories was the woman that, was very dramatic and worried all weekend, and, I'm going to have to quit and blah, 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 because her boss said something. Hi, sweetheart. How are you, Lisa? By the way, all of you all on Blog Talk Radio, I'm talking to Kat. Anybody that writes me, thank you, sweetheart. Anybody that writes me on Facebook Live, I am responding to, because these are dear, dear, sweet friends of mine that we've been together a while, haven't we? So, so that's what's happening when I acknowledge people. I know that Blog Talk Radio is not, doesn't know always what I'm saying. All right, and people listen to it on both channels, so I feel I'll have to explain. Maybe I don't. We have to be willing to be here, and we have to be willing, here's another one, to be human. I find people really struggling with that. This is where perfectionism comes in. Everybody's trying to be so perfect, right? Instead of, well, just be human, live your life. There is no perfection. There is none. There is only perfection in the imperfection of you, because that's where God is. God's the only thing that is perfect. The system is perfect. It works beautifully. But to find that, you have to accept your imperfection. Now, that's a perfect example of how esoteric the world is, and this world is. Because you find things in the opposite of what they are many times. Perfection is found in the imperfection. So you have to accept being human, because we're all imperfect. We are. We really are. We're all imperfect. Why isn't that all right? I did a course on mistakes, believe it or not, maybe, I want to say a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I found some research that said for every 10 decisions that you make, 4 of them are probably going to be wrong. You just won't have enough information. You'll work off the information you have. You'll make an assumption that isn't true. Okay, well, if that's what everybody does, why isn't that all right? It is. You see, what's not all right about it is if someone has a perfectionism issue and they don't reach perfection to them, what happens is they self-attack. So the problem isn't that they've made a mistake or haven't made a mistake. The problem is that you self-attack. Nobody should do that. That's so harsh that we do to ourselves. In my opinion, I think that was why that we so easily believed in the devil, which is as my mother would say, it's a fig Newton of someone's imagination. It was created by the early church fathers because our society worshipped idols and animals and all sorts of things, and they didn't want you to do that anymore. And why not? I mean, everything is God, so, right? No, they wanted a central church. They wanted you to come back to a central church. So they created this devil for everybody to be afraid of. Because we know that devil. It is us. 'Tis I. Okay? We all have that inside of us. We do. We just do. It's called the ego child's mind. And it's selfish and petty and doesn't know what to do with its emotions and hurts others because of it, sometimes physically, certainly psychologically and with words. So we were perfectly set up for that. Well, here's the irony. For us to be better people, we have to realize that about ourselves. That's not a fact we want to run away from or push away from. The fact is, in our acknowledgement of that, in our working on ourselves and our ego child's minds, and our getting over all of this, and having it not active in the nervous system anymore, guess what? All that energy that was in the emotional body that was conflicted and working against ourselves, when we release that, it goes to the spiritual body, and that's where we wake up. Spiritual beings in physical form, and not the physical form that thinks about spirituality for an hour on Sunday morning. It's great. It's important that we become that. We all want the world to change and people to wake up and not vote from their issues. We want people to be aware in this world, and we want a better world. It starts with us. It does. It just does. This truly is the age of individual consciousness. So let's do our share. And by the way, I'm preaching to the choir here. If you're listening to a show like this, you're on board. Okay. So I also want to put one other thing on the table about mistakes. Are mistakes really mistakes when you learn from them? I would say that takes what you initially call a mistake and disqualifies it as a mistake. Because when you learn something and incorporate it into your lives, you go, wow, it makes you what you are. We did an exercise like this that I put on the table. Everybody had a lot of trouble with it too. I asked them to list 10 harms that had been done to them. 10 harms. There were some pretty big harms out there. And then I asked them to write a paragraph about why that wasn't a harm. We could substitute the word mistake too, you see. It was someone's mistake that they harmed this child. So, how was it not? And they came up with some of the most brilliant work. Some of the most brilliant work. There was a a story. It made me very sad. My job is to walk with everybody that comes to me and to go with them on this journey together. And it does break my heart to hear child abuse stories and animal abuse stories, because I love both, right? And there was a story that was told about a father that, this is a 4-year-old girl. She heard her father killing her kittens in the yard with a shotgun. And when she talked about why that wasn't harm, how she said, I am dedicated to helping animals. Dedicated. And I will be the rest of my life because of that. Now, you've had things happen in your life too, my dears. I'm putting that on the table. We all have. Sometimes they're not as dramatic. If you learned from them, if you are applying your energies to something that is your came right out of your past like that, and you are now dedicated in a different way, this is how you change the world, my darlings. It really is. This is how you do it, because these things are unique to you. These things are unique to you. All right. This is how we go about correcting the world. We don't go out there correcting the world. I don't feel any need to be out grandstanding and bandstanding about a cause. That's just not me. This is what I do. You may go out there. That's no problem. Just make it for the right reasons. And that you're not standing there because you're angry at something from your past. That reduces credibility instead of giving us credibility. Does that make sense to you? It actually does, because there's too much anger instead of clear thinking. And it's clear thinking that's going to change the world. Love that tea. Okay. Let's see where we're going to go next. One other thing, I want to talk about forgiveness here. One of the big things we need to forgive, in addition to just general forgiveness that I'll get to in a minute, is that we're human. We're human. Pardon me. We make mistakes. We've been unloving. We've been unkind. We've been out and out mean. We've been stupid. We've been, what else? What else can I say? All the things that humans are and that humans do. Why isn't that all right? It just is, guys. Forgive yourself. Oh, I had a living in a wood house. This is a wood house, right? And my husband and I had been out all day running errands. We went to Sam's Club, and we went to, I don't know, several things, right? And I met one of my cousins who's also my CPA, whom I just adore, and she gave me this fabulous face mask, that was even better than anything I had, because I could never, my face is small, and I can never get anything to fit, things cover my eyes and halfway down here, so she gave me a great face mask. I was looking forward to using it, but it had been hers. So I came home, and my husband says, you have to boil your face mask, which I've been doing every time we go out, right? So I fell asleep. Practically burned the house down. Thank God I woke up to the stench of the masks burning up, right? and quickly was horrified at myself and dispatched everything, ruined them all. I mean, literally, they're paper, right? The masswork paper before I had, I got my hands on them, but after I finished with them, they certainly were. So they got put in a bag and thrown away because it's. And my husband was so sweet about that. It was just like, well, heck, these things happen. I did feel dumb, but I fell asleep. What can you do? It's something that does happen from time to time. So anyway, guys, we're human. Now, we shouldn't use that as an excuse, should we? There's a nice balance, you see. We shouldn't use any excuses. I would much rather have an explanation from someone than an excuse. Excuse comes out of explanations come out of the highest self-mind. And sometimes we need to explain. But we are human, and that's just the bottom line. So if it's just the simple truth, it's the simple truth. It cost me more money. That's all. That's the worst that happened. And thank God the house was taken care of. I find that one of the real sticking points with most people is the forgiveness of self. It's interesting because I think that unforgiveness is so unbearable to us as human because it's so not in keeping, not in cooperation with love that we really are, that we often end the journey to forgiveness too early. Say we've forgiven. I've seen this over and over and over again in my practice that we'll say we've forgiven someone. Yes, absolutely. That was something I did years ago. I forgave. I bet I can open up more of it. And that's really important to do so, sweeties, because the world of difference between fake, or as my girlfriend would say, faux forgiveness, and the real thing is going to set you free. The faux forgiveness has you adjust around the problem that's still there. And which one do you want? We have a great opportunity doing this work. There's literally nothing that we can't get beyond if you will do what we've been talking about. If you will your heart, mind, and being to doing these things, you will heal. Wow. It's quite a promise from God, isn't it? And the journey really is going from this unforgiving, fear-based, ego, child's mind self to the highest mind and pure love. It's a wonderful thing. So, I urge you to take a good look at forgiveness. I mean, we all, by the way, don't forgive until we do. And you make sure you're finished with it. Sincerely. Okay? Next point. And by the way, that just sounded like I'm throwing you out there. You guys be forgiving. I don't like that. That sounds like that. because it really does take work and some help for somebody to help you do that, because there's a lot of conflict inside you about doing it. You want to stay mad. Okay, go right ahead. You already have that life. So if you want a better one, you're going to have to do what you have to do. And most of the time, I will say most of the time, thank you, okay. I will address that, okay? Thank you so much, and that's a great question. Let's just go to it before I go on and say what I was going to say. Kat just asked, and this is quite a brilliant question, is holding people accountable the same as not forgiving? And I say, Kat, which mind are you coming from when you hold people accountable? Because that's the answer. Which mind are you coming from? If you're holding people accountable out of feeling deprived, slighted, because it wasn't fair, then we've got some issues around that. That's not a good enough motivation to hold people accountable. If you are holding people accountable for one reason and one reason only, which it's the right thing to do, then yes, that's a good reason. But I'm going to put something on the table here because it's a complicated question. I love those complicated questions. And that is, you can't hold anybody accountable if they don't want to be accountable. Do you realize that? There's no way we can force someone, make someone be accountable when they simply will not be. Now that's their journey and their life path. We hope one day that they will wake up. We hope they will see more. They will feel more valuable in the world so they can be accountable. But if they refuse to do that, there's not enough force in the world to make them. So, what does that mean to us if we say there is a child that we're rearing who absolutely, and that they're well into adulthood, and they absolutely will not be accountable for their own lives? We can love them. We can hold a great space for them where they will one day be healthy and whole. But we have to be realistic about them too. And there is no forcing. I did have a story like that this week. Now, what was that story? I had a client call this week, and in her session, she said that, oh, I remember what it was. This is a little off the subject, but nevertheless. So her husband had very much injured himself 2 or 3 times, rotator cuff of his shoulder. He felt he was healing it. Okay. They had something very, very heavy to pick up and to take out into the yard or into the street or wherever it was going, into the garage. And she said, please remember your shoulder, and why don't you call your son out of the basement to take this and help you move this piece. She meant it in all caring and love. The next thing she knew was first of all, she was worried about that he wouldn't make, to her, the right decision. So she went down into the basement, told his son, who came up very grouchily to help his father, who, by the way, when they got upstairs, already had moved it. He was very angry about that because she had interfered with what he, she in essence said, you don't have good. So she brought that story into me and she said, what should I have done? I was motivated by caring. And I said, yes, you did. You were. But that's where it ended. For you to remind him that indeed he had a sore shoulder that was feeling better. And it would be in his best interest not to stress it out. Would he like you to call basement? If he said no, that's no. So one of the things I want you to see that sometimes in our zeal to love people and our zeal to make things right, we think we know best. Well, if we think we know best, we think everybody else is stupid. And believe you me, they get that message. It's a loving spouse thing to do to say, remember the shoulder. It's not a loving spouse thing to do to force something else that someone doesn't want, even if it hurts them. They're in charge of their lives. They're in charge of their lives. Now, Kat, since I don't know the exact thing you're asking me, I am trying to give you all the shadings around a very, very complicated and good question. But I would say holding someone accountable and forgiveness is not the same thing. But there are a lot of shades of gray. You understand? I hope so. And if there's something you want to talk about with this, we'll talk when we talk on the phone, or when or you can write me more about it, because I'm delighted to answer that question more. It is going to be a personal thing, where the boundaries are in a story. What motivates? Thank you, sweetie. What motivates us to say and do what we do? And that has to do with the minds, ego, child's mind, highest self mind. Let's move along then. I think one of the really important things here to always remember, as we are talking about being happy in authenticity by being authentic, is that the authentic person, the truly authentic person, excuse me, I'm listening to several channels going on at the same time in my head. The truly authentic person is very aware that they're not alone on this journey. If you're really authentic, you've gotten over a lot of your issues. You're very balanced. You kind of know what's what. You accept what is. There's a realism that goes. One of the things I want to put on the table, is what I was listening to, is there's something called depressive realism. That's somebody that thinks they're being very real, but they're depressed. And so they think they're being very realistic, but there's a going on that creates a shading that isn't there normally. So we've got the fantasists and we've got the depressive realism, both of which could come out of the same unhappy background. Now, I want you all to realize that, because when I'm talking about reality, I'm not talking about feeling bad. And when we're talking about authenticity, we're not talking about feeling bad, we're talking about feeling good. An ecstatic joy that you walk around with. This is just the knowledge of how things are. And God's right here with you all the time. There was there's It's a philosophy that I happen to believe that at everything's nature, everything praises God. Without sounding anthropomorphic, nice word, too early to say, without a whole cup of tea in me. What I mean by that is I'm looking at the trees outside. The trees are being the best trees they can be. It's not a personality. That's what they do. They add that value. The stone in the path, the best stone it can be. The grain of sand, the best sand it can be. And if you will think of this in terms of us, it's as if when we are our potential, when we are simply being that authentic self, there is a praise to it. We're holding up our part of the design. I like the idea that all of life praises God in this way. I think that's kind of an airy-fairy way to say it, but that's what I believe. I think probably one of the few of us on this earth that don't do that is mankind, who is afflicted and often works against the self and has issues in the way of our doing that. Years ago, a tape came to me. I think it's called the Crickets Chorus. Now, I don't know the people that produced this. You can find it, I think, online. There was a man, if I'm remembering this correctly, that said what he did was he calculated mathematically the sound of crickets, and he lowered the frequency to what it would sound like if the crickets were men with a man and woman's lifespan, and et cetera, et cetera. He calculated it that way. So he took the sound of crickets, so he says. I say so he says. I loved this CD because he put some music to it, you know, and the sound of crickets were there. And the weird thing about the cricket is when he slowed it down, it sounded like a celestial choir. Now, I don't know this person, and I don't mean to disparage him in any way or to say that's great or not great. I would like to believe that that's true. He says it's true, that that's what these crickets really sounded like, and he did not alter them in any way. And if so, that's pretty damn amazing, because this was unearthly majesty. That's all I can say. It's called Chorus, I believe, if you want to get that. And you can probably listen to, just 5 minutes of it or something online. Now, he said he did that, and if so, I don't know why we're not all talking. That's pretty amazing. I'd like to believe that's true simply because of this. It certainly matches what I would like to believe about all. We're all here to praise God by being the best, the most authentic thing that we can be. There's no striving in that. There's no having to get ahead. There's no needing to be right. It's just we're valuable. We're here. We're holding up our part of the design. And let's get on with it, huh? That's really all there is to it. I do feel that we all praise God that way. Now, we have been told what praise is by the churches. Nothing against the churches. I've just never gotten a real good explanation for what praise is. I think praise is what comes out of your mouth every day. I think you're either in the ego child's mind or you're in the highest self mind. And I think prayer And praise comes out of the highest mind. And that's who you are too. So don't lose sight of that. Don't forget that part of you. And what consciousness is about letting more and more and more go of the ego child's mind and becoming that. Why not live a life of praise and prayer? Why not have everything come out of your mouth be praise? I think that's what we're doing, and it just looks like we're talking, right? See, I don't think that channeling is an ooky spooky thing. I think we're all doing it. I think we're all doing it. From one mind or the other. From one degree of that mind or another. You're a channeler. Always have been. Always will be. Now, let's just continue on that path and be more. And more and more. Let's do it. Okay. The next point. I think it's important to realize there are no, and I certainly hinted at this before. Let's go on and hash it out. There are no thwarts in this world. There are obstacles. But nobody's there to thwart you and stop you but you. You may need to rethink, to retreat, to rethink, to redesign, to learn more, to throw something away and create something more. By the way, all of creation is about destroying and creating, right? Building and destroying. Those are the two parts of creating anything. So we have to not be so thrilled with our ego that we can't go, cut that scene, cut that. That didn't serve the drama. And by the way, that's what I'm doing with the book right now. Oh my God, what have I don't know what that scene is in there for. Cut. Don't give it a second thought. There's more where that came from. I think people are afraid to let go sometimes of those things because we don't know there's more where that came from. Yes, there is. I'm here to tell you, you're nothing but that kind of resource. So, here we are. So, the obstacles that we're talking about are there for a reason. And that's really important to acknowledge. Okay, well, this is here. And sometimes it's nothing more than, well, I wanted this, so this isn't the end. Sometimes it's just the knowledge of that. So you can go, well, this isn't the end. Let's see how this works out. And just keep going, right? But most people hit that thwart. They interpret it, that obstacle, as a thwart. And they give up. And so that is the end. I don't think the end is ever the end. Keep it rolling. You see? If we are genuinely stopped in something, I remember years ago, I had a dear friend who all of a sudden found out that she had muscular dystrophy. No, sclerosis, muscular sclerosis. It stopped her solid for a good several years. In those several years, she decided what she wanted. If she had a limited number of hours on this earth, by God, what was she going to do to give? And she came up with the most wonderful thing. And she's made a tremendous success of herself. And I was so proud of her. She became a singer, a specific singer of beautiful Jewish songs. She sang them like an angel because she really felt them. Whole new career opened up. And now her body has not degenerated. She's very into alternative things in addition to anything that could help her. I'm very proud of her. You keep going. If there's an obstacle, it's there for a reason. We must find out the reason, and there'll be more, and get everything you can out of that and go on. You know, one of the things that I say when I give a talk like this is the realization that life's a lot easier than we make it. We make it hard. A lot of us are really addicted to drama. Drama. And drama can be created in all sorts of ways. And one of the things about accepting reality, in which I'm asking you to do so, is drama goes away. Reality just is, neither good nor bad. It's what you do with it. It's there to be created from. It's there to be judged, too. And if you judge it bad, you're going to probably get the result of your thinking about that. It's just easier. Life without drama. I mean, I love drama, by the way. I love writing screenplays and plays, and I love putting that on when I act, which I don't really do anymore. I would put it on the stage. I like words too much to act anymore. I like to create the words. I like to create the body of the piece. I think that's a lot more fun. And that's where drama belongs. Not in your life. Not in the way you look at everything. And drama is a distraction. It's keeping you from going where you need to go. Now, many of us came from very dramatic homes. And in that, we have hidden our drama or been just like our families. What I mean is we may be very overt to tell everybody, create drama on the outside, or we can hold it all on the inside, and it can work against us there too. But it's still drama, and you got to recognize your drama. Okay? That's something to get rid of in your life and find a creative outlet for. Okay. Next point. If something hurts you, it's just, I want you all to realize it's just in your past coming around again. It's in the past. It has been in the past. It's coming around again. Nothing comes around again unless there's a deeper level of it that needs to be resolved. That's why it comes around again. Otherwise, it simply doesn't come around. If there's nothing else to learn from it, it will stop. So if you find yourself going to someone, and I worked on someone the other day that I had not worked on before, and she said, oh my God, she's a very good friend of mine, so she knew, whatever I was picking up was right. And she and I do similar work in different ways. And so when I picked this up, she went, I told myself that was all taken care of, but it's not, obviously. That's a real lovely thing for you to say to me, instead of, oh, I've worked with that before, I'm over that, you're just wrong. That could be too, right? And I don't mind being wrong. I gotta tell you, bring it on. That's fine. I don't mind being wrong, and that helps be accurate and right. Believe it or not. Isn't that strange? Another esoteric weirdness, but it's true. So she said, obviously, there's more to go. And so when she opened her mind to that, all of a sudden, the revelation started coming. I was very proud of her. My point being, dears, if it's coming around again, it just means there's something you hadn't found yet in there that needs to be resolved. And it can be. And it must be. Now, the more and more aware you get, the more and more out of the ego child's mind you are, and the more you are in the highest self, the more you're going to be able to go, oh my God, absolutely, and just fix it. The awareness itself will help you a lot. That doesn't happen in the beginning and the intermediate stages. That only happens in very, very advanced work. So, kid, just be willing to do the work. Next point. Avoidance is not your friend. Avoidance of anything, and there are a million ways to avoid. You know, there are a million ways to look at all of this. I'll never forget the little woman that came into my office and said to me, I have worked on myself my whole life. I can't recall a time I didn't work on myself. And I was puzzled by all this because I saw, nothing had ever been done. And I said, well, what have you been doing to work on yourself? I go to a psychic once a month. Always have. Do exactly what she says. I didn't work with her very long. I don't think she liked my methodology of bringing her out of fantasy. But anyway, it's what it is. We should all find our own, right? Okay. Guys, any kind of avoidance, any kind, if it's fantasy, if it's out and out avoiding, if it's distraction with drama or anything else. I mean, there's so many ways to avoid. So many ways to avoid. What I want to say is this. Avoidance is not personal growth. It is the absence of growth dressed up as self-deception. You are self-deceiving when you're avoiding. And avoidance is not going to help you. Avoidance is something we learn when we're young, and it does help when we're young, and we have no other means of defense. But when you're an adult, you must get rid of it. Because if that settles into and hardens and becomes something you cannot get past, your life is simply bonsoir. And somebody just spoke some French, so bonsoir to you too. This becomes very important for you to understand, for you to move past, for you to challenge in yourself. Don't avoid anything. Look at it all. Nothing is going to hurt you. Nothing's going to kill you. Nothing's going to break you. Nothing's going to give you anxiety. Here's the irony. If you continue to avoid, that makes you more anxious, not less anxious. You've got to understand this. It's actually making you more anxious, not less anxious. So you're a little anxious changing that and challenging that, then that's a good anxiety to have. Because it is the not going with, the not doing things that are natural and good for you that give you the most anxiety and that will hurt you in the end. I hope that makes sense. Now, what do you do about that? You go to somebody to help you. Because all of us are here to help you. We don't have a dog in the fight. We just want to help. We want to give you whatever we've got to help. That's all. We want to point out your highest self when you lose it. We want to help you negotiate between the highest self and the ego child's mind. We want to take some of these things that propel you to act in a certain way from the ego child's mind right off the table. That's what a really good energy worker will do. All right, moving on. This is something that occurs the more and more you work. I think it starts as a fantasy with a lot of people that God is with you every step of the way, right? Sometimes that's a fantasy. And then as you do more and more work, as you get the ego child's mind out of there, what you really really is all I am, and it's with me all the time, and that everything around me is communicating with this God self that I am, and I'm communicating with everything else, and this is the start of the oneness with all life that you'll eventually wake up to. It's a wonderful thing. We are going to be courageous, though, and step out of the foxhole that we hide in. There's no war that's going on anymore, but we're convinced there is, because we have certain things that are unresolved in our nervous system that happened in our childhoods. And these things must be addressed. All right. The next point, I addressed this in another show, but I want to put this on the table again just to remind you. It's fine for you to not know what love is and for you to admit it. I don't know what love is a beautiful phrase to me, because my next thought is, then let's go find out. Let's go find out. Because here it is. I'm going to tell you what it is, but you won't believe me maybe. It's you. It's all you are. Now, there is a selfish love mixed into there, that when we do something, we want something back. There is a love that is dependent. I'm going to have a lot of friends and attach to everybody because I may need them one day because I don't feel, independent and whole. That's a great place to start. That's no problem with that. However, as you raise your vibration, as you get more and more conscious, you absolutely find out what love really is. Love is all you are. Love is the air you breathe. Love is the tree you see. Love is the squirrel that's waiting outside for the peanuts you throw out. Love is every bit of it. There are so many dimensions and layers to love. Now let's go find out what they are, okay? It reveals itself more and more when you do some work on yourself. And I want to say one other note, which is, well, I've got several other notes, but here's a big one. Guys, work on yourselves till your last breath. Work on yourself till your last breath. Why not? Why not? Discover more about you. Keep going. Never tire of that. It is the drama of the ego child's mind that goes, I've been working on myself for so long, and I'm so pitiful, and I just can't get it yet. So what? That's an excuse. Kick yourself in the butt and go on. For heaven's sakes, it's just drama. It's a real good example of drama. And here's the interesting thing. Even those that are not overly dramatic always get there to that point. I have heard that every time when somebody gets to that point. In fact, I have said it every time when I got to that point. Just realize what it is. It's all an excuse. You're just feeling sorry for yourself. All right, get over it. I've heard it. Let's go on. Because the greatest thing you can do for yourself is work on yourself until your last breath. Long time from now, by the way. Another point is, I think a lot of people, and I mentioned this last week, but I'm going to say it again. I think you need to know who and what God, really what God is. You're the who of God, but God is the what. God is energy. Listen, please, to the first 2 or 3 radio shows I've ever given on these channels. And look at Blog Talk Radio and see the very first ones I've ever given, because I talked about what God is and who you are as the aspect of God you are. I think that's an important lesson for you all to go back and listen to. All right. That's in essence really all I have to say, and we've got 15 minutes only left to go. Guys, I can't tell you from the bottom of my heart how important it is to keep on this journey. I've never met anybody that was sincerely on this journey whose lives did not take off. They became so happy. They were enriched in every way. They saw everything in the world as helping them, nothing hindering them. They were able to create happy lives for themselves. And I'm one of these people that this work has changed dramatically. Unbelievably. Thank you so much, sweetheart. When I think of how life used to be and the way it is now, there's no comparison. I was as confused as anybody years ago, really. There was, it's just so important for you to work on yourself and to clear out the cobwebs so you can finally see. And I'm grateful every day that I heard those bells ring. I think I told you all last week about the tick dream that propelled me on my way. But there have been other things that have propelled me on my way too, like I'd hear a bell inside me. It was like the whole body would vibrate when I was supposed to do something, when I heard somebody's name, or I needed to go and talk to them. You're being communicated with that way. You're maybe talking yourself out of it. But the whole universe is going to support you. It's too easy to say, well, I don't have the money to do that, when somehow the money comes if you are doing work for the important intention of adding value to this world and to your own life. I want to leave you with one thing, and that is, I mentioned this, I think, the other day, but it's just such a beautiful quote. Leonard Cohen's song, it's called Authent, and his chorus goes like this. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Isn't that lovely? So I leave you with that thought, and one other. You can do this, kids. You can do this, because everybody can do this. It is a personal journey, and nobody's going to go on it but you. Know yourself. Work on yourself. What's stopping you? You're too old? There's no such thing. Not enough money? There's no such thing. Not healthy enough? No such thing. Just do it. Just do it. And live your life well. Let's pray. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, thank you so much for our being together. Thank you for the next step that we know we must take. Thank you for opening our hearts, minds, and very beings to you. Put your words in our mouth, your love in our heart, your light in our cells, and your wisdom in our very being. We open ourselves to this now, and we say thank you, dear God. Thank you. Thank you for it all. The light and the dark, everything that we've lived. Show us how to use this now and be our potential in the world and add value to our own lives and those of others. We are so grateful. And we open ourselves to the grace and goodness of you. We say this now in your name and in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to this show. Thank you so much. Amen. Guys, I also want to thank you personally, and I mean this with all my heart. I want to thank you personally for following us, friending us, liking us, all that. That apparently matters a lot to publishers that are out there, which I'm going to, when this book is ready, try to find. And certainly I've self-published in the past because I've been in a very niche market, which is consciousness. They call that a niche market. In other words, there are not a lot of customers for it. That's what they say. This book is certainly teaches spiritual principles, but it's a real commercial fiction. So I'm going to need numbers, so if you all can help me with that, that's the reason I ask for them every week. I appreciate it so much because publishers these days want to be assured they can sell books, you see. They're really not interested in you if you are not a celebrity, which I am certainly not. But that's why there are so many celebrity books out there. They want people that, people follow. So those numbers are really rather important to me, and I'd appreciate it so much if you guys will continue to boost the radio show and the people that know about it. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And God bless you all. Have a great week. I'll see you next week. Now, next week, by the way, important week, because we're going to be talking about creating the life you want. And this is beyond some of the teachings that are already out there. We're going to talk about how to do this. Okay? All right. Thank you for those hearts. I love you all too. Okay? Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.